Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at some potentially strong, severe storms today over parts of the Great Lakes, including parts of Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio, and as well parts of northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. You guys are all going to be seeing some very, very strong storms for today. The National Weather Service actually put out a moderate risk of severe weather through eastern Michigan and northern Ohio and into northern Indiana as well because of that very, very high risk of damaging winds. So we're going to take a look here at your current National Weather Service page, and then we'll look at your radar quickly, and then we'll go back to looking at the Storm Prediction Center. Here is your current National Weather Service page. We actually have heat advisories for parts of the Great Lakes, and then also through parts of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and into Delaware. We have wind advisories for parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Missouri, and then also for another area in Missouri and Kansas, and then also for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And then also we have another area there for northern Michigan and the UP of Michigan. And then we also have heat advisories over southwestern California. Other than that, it is quite a quiet day in terms of your watches and warnings. The only other watch or warning we have is some flood watches in effect for parts of Iowa. So let's take a look currently at what your radar is looking like. And here's your current radar loop. And this is from the Chicago radar. And currently your storms are actually currently on Lake Michigan right now, and they're moving into the state of Michigan. But you see, they're moving eastward. They're moving quite slowly. So if this were on land, it would most likely be causing some flash flooding issues. We have two special marine warnings in place over parts of Lake Michigan, and then we have two different severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for parts of westernmost Michigan. If we actually read one of them, they actually are indicating potentially 60-mile-per-hour winds, and they are also indicating penny-sized hail. With the other one, they are also showing 60-mile-per-hour winds and potentially some roof damage and trees potentially being blown down. But we do have some very, very strong severe storms that are going to be making their way further and further to the east as we continue to go on through the day. They're going to continue to make their way further and further to the east. So here is currently what the Storm Prediction Center is putting out for their outlook, and they actually have a slight risk in that yellow, a enhanced risk in that orange, and a moderate risk in that red. And the reason they have that moderate risk is actually because they have a very, very high chance of wind damage, which I'll show you in just one moment. So over eastern Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, you have that very, very high risk of severe weather, and that's actually associated with Tropical Storm Cristobal, which is currently circulating over parts of Iowa and Illinois, and that's actually bringing in some of this very, very warm, moist air with a associated warm front over the top of this system. So you have Cristobal sitting right around here, and then you have your associated warm front that's kind of going over the top like this. Then you have a dragging cold front behind this that's kind of going somewhere like this, and that's kind of your setup with Cristobal right now. And Cristobal is going to be making its way further to the north and to the east with time, and that's actually helping drag some of that warm, moist air up from the south and from the Gulf of Mexico. So now something we have to take into account. Moderate risk actually means long-lived, widespread, and intense thunderstorms. From This is what the National Weather Service would categorize this as. For an enhanced risk, it calls for more persistent and/or widespread thunderstorms with a few intense ones, and then slight risk is a short-lived and or not widespread, isolated, intense storms that are possible. So here is your wind or your tornado outlook, and you have a 2% chance in that green and a 5% chance in that brown, which I wouldn't be surprised if they actually upgrade it to maybe even a 10% chance somewhere. Not saying it will happen, but it wouldn't be shocking if it does. They actually have the chance of potentially, which I'll talk about later, they have an 80% chance they put out of putting up a tornado watch in western Michigan, northern Indiana, and I believe maybe even touching Illinois there. So we'll have to see about that, and I'll talk about that later on in the video. Here's your wind outlook, and I believe this is the highest wind damage outlook that they put out this entire year, with a 45% chance of wind damage. This is basically a 4 out of 5 for your wind damage. You also have a significant risk in there, which means that you have the probability of seeing, I believe, about 65 knot winds or greater, which is over 75 miles per hour, which is very, very intense. And now that I'm looking at it, I looked at the models earlier today and kind of just got up to date with what's happening. And basically, they have most of the models have wind gusts of about 70 miles per hour with this kind of squall line that looks to kind of move through and form through central Michigan and then move eastward throughout the day. And that's why they actually have that very, very high risk in place. And then here's your hail outlook, 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually update this to maybe even a 30% chance over some of these areas, most likely in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and maybe even touching parts of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. Now, here's your thunderstorm outlook, and this is for the earlier part of today. And they put a 40% chance over parts of Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, a little bit of Ohio, and much of Michigan there. That's a 40% chance there. And you also have that next stripe that goes basically from Louisiana to upstate New York, where they have another 40% chance there. But as we go through the day, this is basically the middle portion of your day, the afternoon hours, right before the evening, and you have about a 70% chance of thunderstorms through eastern Michigan, eastern Indiana, western Ohio there, and then if we look a little bit later into the overnight hours, into the early morning, you have a 70% chance there for easternmost Michigan and north central Ohio there. So here is your flooding risk, and you have a 10 to 20% chance in that yellow for parts of eastern Wisconsin, and a marginal risk in that green for the other areas that are going to be seeing some thunderstorms for today. Now, here is your current mesoscale discussion, and this is the one where they say that probably will put an 80 they'll put they have an 80% chance of putting out a tornado watch for this area that's kind of highlighted in this blue area. This is from the Storm Prediction Center, and I believe what they're putting on is the CAPE on the screen. So this kind of red area, that's 2,000 CAPE, 1,500 CAPE, and these kind of orange stripes right here. So that's indicating how much CAPE is there, and we do have quite a bit. We have about 2,000 CAPE, maybe even 2,500 for today. They're saying 46 to 60 mile per hour, increasing into the 50 to 70 mile per hour range towards midday in terms of your thunderstorm gust winds. So here is the mesoscale discussion, and I'm not going to read it out. You can pause the video right now if you want to read this out. This is also on the Storm Prediction Center's website, and it's very easy to find on their website. It's pretty much on their home screen. And something I want you to look at is a probability of watch assurance or issuance is 80%, and they're talking about the potential of a tornado watch. So that is a very, very high likelihood, and it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to put it out at this point. Now, here is your some of the ingredients that you need for these thunderstorms, and then we'll look at your simulated radar. Here is your max temperatures for today, and these are high temperatures. And over Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, look at these temperatures that are right around 85 to even 90 degrees in some areas. So that's really going to help fuel these storms. Now, if we look at your dew point temperatures, very, very warm. You only need about 60 dew points or dews, and you have already about 70 to about 72 degree dew points. So that is very, very high for thunderstorms, and it really helps it kind of grow and strengthen with these thunderstorms. Here's your CAPE values from the European model, and you're seeing we have about 2,000 to maybe even 2,500 CAPE in those oranges, and that's just a snapshot of what we have. And you see we do have at least above 1,000 for all of these areas right here, so that helps fuel these thunderstorms, and that is really good for thunderstorm development right there. And then here is your precipitable water, and this is showing you how much water you would see or you would have if you kind of squeezed it out of the atmosphere. And this is how much water is in the atmosphere. And you see we have over 2 inches, maybe even 2.5 inches in the atmosphere right now, which is a lot. And that's going to basically come down with a lot of force. And it's basically going to be one heavy downpour that's going to be moving through. And this is your arm of moisture right here. This is your arm of moisture right here that's going to be swinging eastward. And that's going to be bringing with it those thunderstorms. So you see where it is right now, or basically right around right now. It's over where we actually had those thunderstorms. If we actually looked at the radar, and I'll pop it up right now, that's where we had those thunderstorms over that same area where that precipitable water is right now. So the fact that this is going to be moving eastward is going to bring with it those thunderstorms. So here is your wind gusts out of this, and I'm going to play this through a little bit. And this is just kind of showing you why they actually put out that 45% chance of wind damage throughout parts of Michigan, Ohio, and I believe a little bit of Indiana there. So here it is kind of earlier in the day. Now, this would be right around, I believe, this would be right around noontime today. So we have about 60 mile per hour wind gusts with some of these, and some of these actually bring up to about 70 miles per hour in those browns. That's hurricane force wind speeds in those browns. So that's with a line of thunderstorms moving through as we go through the day, and this would be closer to about 1 p.m. Central Time, closer going to about 2 p.m. Central Time, and we actually have this line of thunderstorms moving through with multiple pockets that have over hurricane force wind speeds, or even 70, maybe even 75 mile per hour wind speeds bringing with it, and then it passes over Detroit, and now it's starting to move over central Ohio, and we have those wind speeds of about still 60 miles per hour or so, which is about hurricane force wind speeds. Now, here's your simulated radar for today, and this is going to show you how heavy your downpours are going to be for today, and it's going to show you where your thunderstorms look to set up. Now, here it is for right around early this morning. So this was actually a couple of hours ago what this model would be indicating. And then as we play it through, you start to see those thunderstorms develop throughout Lake Michigan. And the fact that these thunderstorms actually on the NAM3CAM model are actually a little bit less intense than they actually are on the actual radar. This is the forecast from, this was a model run that was about a couple of hours ago. So it's a bit outdated, but this is the latest that we have. And the fact that it's showing weaker thunderstorms that than we actually have potentially shows that this could actually be a little bit worse than we've seen than we're looking to see right now. So that is definitely something to know. The fact that the actual radar is depicting stronger storms than the models is definitely a little bit worrying for potentially some strong to severe storms. Now this is going to be by about 1 p.m. Central Time, and then as we get to about 2 p.m. Central Time, you see scattered thunderstorms, supercells. This is where you're going to have your tornado threat earlier in the day, right around between 1 and 3 p.m. Central Time, where you have those kind of just isolated supercells. That's where you could have a couple tornadoes, but then as it starts to move into kind of a squall line, kind of like this over northern Indiana, starting to move into Ohio and central Michigan by about 3 p.m. 3 p.m. Central Time. That's when you're starting to really get those thunderstorms to move through, and it continues throughout the afternoon. That's when you're seeing that squall line. Further to the south, potentially, you could see a couple more tornadoes because of how isolated those storms are in nature. So that is something to note. And then as it moves eastward, you start to see it really starts to strengthen, and you can definitely tell it's the same area where you had those very strong wind speeds that this area is going to be moving through. Now it starts to move over parts of the Great Lakes, and it starts to move into Canada and also to Ohio there. So that's when it's really starting to weaken a little bit, and it's starting to lose some of its strength. Now, this is your final precipitation through. I put it to about Thursday night because you are going to have cristobal moving northward and further to the east. So I just want to show you how much precipitation you're going to see, and you have about 1 inch of rainfall from this. And this isn't all from these thunderstorms, but it is mostly from these thunderstorms where you could probably pick up half an inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe even a full inch in just maybe 1 or 2 hours of precipitation. So it is going to be very torrential downpours with this event. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.